see you guys in the dark.
This story begins in 8th grade. For context, I'm a white female and was struggling with really bad depression and self-harm, 7th grade to 8th grade in. 2 years clean. Desperately had a big impact on my memory on some sections of my childhood. And this time it is completely blank, so this is as close as I can remember. But this might not be 100% accurate. At the end of the 8th grade, one of my close male friends, Tom, invited me to his birthday party. There was about 10 guys there, and me with my best friend, who was female. I knew about 9 of the guys there, but one I didn't recognize. This party took place in a garden playground area. We played hide-and-go-seek, tag, and capture the flag with fake swords. As the sun began to set, Tom wanted to play hide-and-go-seek in the dark. There was a dark tunnel that went from the play structure to the rest of the park. A majority of us started to run to the tunnel to go and hide. Suddenly, halfway through, hands shot out and tried to grab people's ankles. I tripped and landed on my hands and knees. The second my hands hit the ground, a foot hit my legs as I tripped someone else. The hands in the dark laughed as Tim's friend came out from the dark. The person who tripped over me turned out to be the person I had never met. We went to a bench right outside the tunnel to check for wounds and patch ourselves up. We got acquainted, and he introduced himself as David Whittaker III. He was polite, kind, and easy on the eyes. We had some stuff in common. His birthday was the same as my father's, and he was outgoing and an extrovert. Exactly what I needed to be a more rounded person. The rest of the night was a blur, but we spent most of the night talking. As the party was coming to an end, and people's parents were coming to pick them up, he asked me for my number in addition to my best friend's. He did it in a way that he only really wanted my number, but wanted to be polite. He never seemed creepy in doing this. He wasn't unsettling. He was just a cute boy asking for my number. Davidson, or as he let me call him, Davis, and I spent the next month or so talking about absolutely everything, non-stop, every day. I felt beautiful and wanted. It was comforting. At some point, we became more than friends. We were suddenly dating, but I never wanted to go on a date. I think he convinced me to go on a date, as a group, to some movie, but I don't remember it. The only proof I have of this exchange is a ticket stub and his word. He finally convinced me to go to a real date. I wore some jean shorts and a t-shirt. He chose the location of a museum in the city. If you know me, you wouldn't know there's only 3 museums I like in the whole world, and I hate normal museums. As a kid, my mom forced me to go to all of them, whenever we traveled, and I got sick of them quickly. He picked me up from my house, and now knew where I lived. I didn't think anything of it at the time. After we went to the museum, I went out to dinner with him and my mom at my favorite Thai place. I even have an awkward photo to remember that moment by. After the date, however, he sent me lewd thoughts he had that whole date with me. We had attempted sexting before, but I wasn't that involved. I'd send a yeah or a daddy every 20 lines or so. I've always been a people pleaser in both ways, and just wanted him to be happy. But this time, it felt off. It felt real. I couldn't pretend someone else was sexting him. It was about me, and I didn't like that. It made me feel uncomfortable, and so I just buried that feeling deep. This was the first thing that felt off about him. After that, things got worse. I wanted space sometimes, and he didn't like that. I would take a 30-minute shower and get back to 50 to 100 messages from him. He started to make it racial. He's an African American, and kept on talking about how I needed some of his cocoa. My family is from the Deep South, so anything racial makes me deeply uncomfortable. His messages got more explicit. He would detail any wet dream he had about me and how it made him feel. It all made me so very uncomfortable. Finally, I had enough of this. I told him it was over, and we needed to stop. It was only about 2 to 3 months, but I couldn't take it anymore. I told him no. He tried arguing with me. He said it wasn't fair. He said I needed him. He said he cared about me. He said I was the only one. I said no again to him. That didn't matter to him. We were meant to be, and my no meant nothing to him. That definitely scared me. I told him I wouldn't feel safe anymore around him, and how much I hated what he was doing. I told him I wasn't comfortable anymore because he didn't know the meaning of no, because I was scared he was going to rape me. He said he'd never hurt me, ever. I told him to stay away from me, from my house. He showed up at my doorstep. My parents invited him in because they thought we were still dating. I was so ashamed it wasn't working out, but I couldn't just say anything. He stayed for the food before I was able to get him out. I told my parents shortly after he left to never let him return. He continued with the one-sided sexting. He sent nudes. He sent 13 roses when I didn't talk to him for a week. I threw the roses out the window. I've always hated flowers because they die too quickly, but he never bothered to even ask me. He showed up at my doorstep again, even when I begged him not to. My dad told him through the door to go away, as I cowered in my living room. He scared me so much. I was never safe. Every guy around his height with his hair cut gave me a fright. I was terrified he would see me and do things to me. I got a boyfriend freshman year, John, a timid guy who I could break if I hugged him too hard. John's heart was made of gold. He made me feel safe. Yet Davis persisted. He texted me daily, begging me to stop cheating. He thought we had been dating this whole time. I tried everything, besides disengaging. I told him I was gay now. Not entirely wrong, though. I told him I was transitioning to male. He is very straight, and this was never meant to belittle trans individuals. Yet, what shook him the most was when I gave myself an undercut. Not my hair. He treated it like I was damaging his property. This just kept persisting. Unrelated to him, I went to a therapeutic boarding school end of freshman year. I got the help and support I needed because I had tried to hurt myself during freshman year. I got better and off my depression meds. I was gone from technology and texting for 13 months and 12 days. I thought I was better when I came back, that I had matured and could handle him. I messaged him August 20th, beginning of junior year, that I thought we would work it out. Almost verbatim, he said, "All those other girls meant nothing to me. You were the only one for me." And he also said that we had been dating since that night in 8th grade. I was naive and thought I was in control, so we tried to make it work. I had 2 rules. 1, you will never see me in person. 2, I initiate when we talk. I still felt scared of him, and these rules made me feel safe. He told me he drove by my house every time we went to swim practice, and that he missed me. I was having none of it. I said he had 3 chances, and it was over, but he probably broke them 20 times. Junior year, September, I got back with John. He made me feel safe. I told him about Davis, and he was nicer than he should have been about my mistakes with him. We laughed at the stuff Davis said, but deep down, I was scared. I still am scared. I had enough when I was scrolling back through our old messages. I said no, and replied, but my cock said yes. I told him that I was done, and I blocked him in November. I unblocked him on Valentine's Day, and he sent about 20 messages about how much he missed me, and the exact day count since I had last talked to him. It scared me. I blocked him immediately without replying. My 18th birthday was riddled with fear because I told Davis that I couldn't have sex with him until I was 18 because of morals or whatever. That's what I thought at the time, but now I know it was just fear. He knows my school. He knows my address. My current best friend is trained in martial arts and self-defense for a decade, so I hung to her all day. What should have been an exciting day of adulthood was riddled with fear that he would just show up. I haven't blocked him since last Valentine's Day. I haven't talked to him in almost a year and a half. Yet, I'm still scared some days. Scared that the man who is obsessed with me is right around the corner, watching me. I'm a gay guy who started his first semester of college this past August. and I'm pretty sure that I have a stalker ending the semester. It all started in early September when I met this guy, we'll call him Tim, at a QSA meeting. We became quick friends, and that week he started flirting with me, saying we would be a cute couple, and stuff to our new friends, who all cheered it on, and thought that it would be great. I laughed it off because I didn't want a relationship, and he hadn't been in one before, so obviously nothing is going to happen. But only a week later, Tim began talking about how he believed in love at first sight, and how he thinks he's in love with someone to some of our mutual friends. At one point, he went on a date with a guy, Peter, from our group, and Tim ended up turning Peter down because he liked me. I found out about this early in September, but I never told him that I did. We stayed friends, and I tried to figure out my feelings for him. I wasn't sure if I liked him as a friend or more, until one night in early October. We were hanging out with 2 other friends when he told me that he's about to be heartbroken, and then an hour later tells me that he likes me, with our friends in the room. I told him that I wasn't sure if I liked him, and I wanted to take things slow. The next day, he showed up outside one of my classes when he was supposed to be in class. He was standing right outside of his classroom door and mine at the end of the hall. As soon as he saw me leave, he ran to me and started talking about how excited he was to see me, and insisted on walking me to the cafeteria because Tim knew that's where I go after class. A big red flag, I think. I told him to get back to class, and after some protesting about how he can't focus and stuff, he gave in and went to class. Later on that day, we were going to catch a movie on campus with my roommates, and we decided to go for a walk first. I realized very early on during this walk that I did not like him as more than a friend, and we had nothing in common with one another. There was nothing to talk about besides our mutual friends, but apparently he did not get the same vibe because he asked me for a relationship. The day after I said, let's take things slow, I told him no, that I wanted a friendship, and he responded with, well, that's how relationships start, right? And Tim came to watch and gave me a big hug afterwards, which I hugged him during. Then we decided to sit next to each other along with other friends and watch the rest of the show. We ended up going back to that friend's dorm, ordering food, and watching a movie. 4 people all night long. But apparently that was not enough for him to think that we were together, because that's what he started to tell everybody. He told every one of our mutual friends that we were dating. I didn't talk to him for 4 days. I didn't even as much as look in his direction. I figured that he could get the hint, since we were never actually dating. I don't like confrontation, and if I'm not dating somebody, why do I have to break up with them? I didn't know that he was telling people that until after the next incident. One day, I sat down next to him in a room because it was the only empty seat, but I still did not talk to him or even acknowledge him because he was being very creepy towards me. Tim gets up to leave because he's got a meeting, and Tim decides that this means he can give me a hug. Around my neck, as I'm sitting at a computer, with my arms outstretched, I froze and didn't say a word, but as soon as he walked away, I broke down into a panic attack. I just couldn't deal with that anymore, because apparently 4 days of no communication whatsoever didn't mean anything to him. He didn't even try to reach out to see what was happening. Later that day, I tell him that I'm not ready for a relationship, and that we are not dating. He tells me, maybe in the future, to which I shoot him down immediately, and he gets a bit upset, but seems to understand. He tells me to have a great rest of the semester, and I figured that was going to be him leaving me alone. We were still going to be in the same friend group, but we didn't have to really be that good of friends. We can just exist in the same place. Fast forward 2 weeks of weird stares and side comments about how handsome I am, that I'm not saying anything to because I'm the mean guy who broke Tim's heart. And it's the week of Halloween. I get a notification from Snapchat that someone just screenshotted one of my posts, and I check it, and I see it was Tim. A little weird, but maybe it was a mistake. Until I get another notification saying the same thing, on another one of my selfies. There ended up being 6 screenshots taken over a 2-day period of my selfies that I posted on my Snap story by Tim. I started to freak out by this point, and I was going to confront him, but then a more terrifying incident occurred. I was sitting at a table with my friend Anna and Tim, and when Tim pulls out a knife randomly, he holds it to his hand and says, "I know that if I try hard enough, this will go through," and my friend Anna tells him to put it away. He just looks at me and smiles as he puts away the knife. Then he goes on to ask if we've seen his Twitter lately, which I had because I had become increasingly concerned. He was retweeting posts about being in love with someone who doesn't love him back. Tim made tweets about how he was still in love with someone and how he wished that person didn't feel uncomfortable. He also made tweets saying that he was going to harm himself because of people in his life. That Friday, which was the day after Halloween, I went to a small Halloween party, and Tim was there. I got drunk for the first time. 7 mixed drinks, 5 Jello shots, and 3 shots of vodka. I was pretty done in, and Tim took 2 Jello shots. He began to act like he was drunk, but it was clearly an act just to try and fit in since everyone else had been drinking. We decided to play a game of Truth or Dare, and Tim sat on the ground next to me. Throughout the game, he kept making comments about me and moving as close to me as possible, to the point where I got up and moved. At one point, Peter, who dared to seduce me, after about 10 seconds, we both started laughing and thought it was hilarious, but Tim got really angry about it. He started saying how it was making him uncomfortable, and how Peter should respect me, and how I was Tim's. He called me by my Tyler at one point. He also got angry at me and my friend Courtney when I was dared to take a Jello shot off of Courtney. I don't even like girls, mind you. Tom basically started to tell me how I should respect him, and how uncomfortable I was making him. But since I was drunk that night, and not thinking properly, and this kid Tim said that he needed a place to crash for the night, my stupid brain offered up my dorm. He crashed along with my friend Peter in the living room. The next morning when we all got up for breakfast, every single time that I talked, Tim was staring at me. He had done that before, but this time I was scared. He kept making comments about how cute of a drunk I was, and how he wished I was more honest with him. I'm brutally honest drunk. And again, he kept making comments about how uncomfortable he was when I was touching or doing anything with anyone else. At this point, it started to affect my mental health. Jay had 12 panic attacks and missed 9 classes in 1 week because I was scared that he was going to be outside my lecture halls. He had done so before, but he sat in a chair outside, so I don't know if that's where he waits, or if it is because he knows I have class in there. I just couldn't. I had a breakdown, and had to practically be carried to the campus counseling center by 2 of my friends because I was so scared that he would hurt me if I asked him to stop. That day I broke down. I took all of the evidence that I had against him, the threatening tweets, the screenshot posts, the threat he made with the knife, to my college's administration building to get help. For my best interest, they had me place a no-contact directive against him, which was basically 1 step below a restraining order. But it doesn't end there. After the order was filled, he showed up another drag show I was in, and sat in front and center. Tim stared at me when I was off stage, and he looked very angry. I thought he was going to do something. I was so scared. He left right before I went on, but that was only because my roommates made sure of that. I didn't see him afterwards, but I broke down again that night because I was so scared he was going to show up and hurt me. Now, every time we are in the same vicinity, he stares at me. He'll be sitting in a chair as I'm walking down the hallway, and he's just following me with his eyes down the hall. Or I'll be 1 table over, and he'll just talk about how close he is, and how he can't believe he's here, and stuff like that. It's not breaking the order because he's not directly coming up to me, and not directly making threats to me, but he won't stop talking about me. From the few people who still talk to him, I've heard he's pretty obsessed and wants to make up with me. He wants me to drop the order so that he can, if he tries to talk to me now, he can either be arrested or expelled or both. But apologize and prove that he is better now. Some people keep telling me that he is reaching stalker territory, or that it could have easily gotten there. Was it? I don't know what to label what happened to me. What's still happening at this very moment? Do I have a stalker? Or is this dude just really, really creepy?
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.